Chapter 2. Bodhi, wondrous truth, cuts off Māra, returns to the root, and joins the Primal Spirit. Now we are speaking of the handsome Monkey King, who has received his name. He jumped out joyfully and went forward to give his Bodhi his grateful salutations. The patriarch then ordered his congregation to lead Sun Wukong outdoors to teach him to sprinkle water on the ground and dust, and how to speak and move in a proper courtesy. The company of the immortals obediently went outside with Wukong, who then bowed to his fellow students. They prepared thereafter a place in a corridor where he might sleep. The next morning he might learn his schoolmates in the arts of language and etiquette. He discussed with them the scriptures and doctrines. He practiced calligraphy and burned incense. Such was a daily routine. In more leisurely moments he was sweeping the grounds or hoeing the gardens, planting flowers or pruning trees, gathering firewood or lighting fires, fetching water or carrying drinks. He did not lack for whatever he needed, and thus lived in the cave without realizing that 6 or 7 years have slipped by. One day the patriarch has ascended from the platform and took his high seat, calling together the immortals. He began the lecture on the great doctrine. He spoke with words so florid and eloquent, the gold lotus sprang up from the ground. The doctrine of 3 vehicles he subtly rehearsed, including even the laws of minute's title. The yak's tail waved slowly and sprouted elegance. His thunderous eon ninth of heaven. For a while he lectured on Tao, and for a while he spoke on Chang to harmonize the 3 parties. It is a natural thing for one world elucidation, filled with truth, points to birthless, showing nature's mystery. Wukong was standing there listening, was so pleased the talk he scratched his ear and rubbed his jaw, grinned ear to ear, and could not refrain from dancing on all 4s. Suddenly the patriarch saw this and called him out. "Why are you so madly jumping and dancing in the ranks when you're not listening to my lecture?" Wukong said, "Your pupil was so devoutly listening to a lecture, but then I heard such wonderful things from my reverend master that I could not contain myself. For the joy I started to leap and prance, and quite unconsciously, may the master forgive my sins." "Let me ask you," said the patriarch, "if you comprehend these wonderful things, do you know how long you have been in this cave?" Wukong said, "Your pupil is basically feeble-minded and does not know the number of seasons. I only remember whenever a fire burnt out in the stove, I would go back to the mountain and gather some more firewood, finding a mountain full of fine peach trees there. I've eaten my fill of peaches 7 times. The patriarch said, "The mountain is named Ripe Peach Mountain. If you have eaten your fill 7 times, I suppose it must have been 7 years. What kind of Taoist art would you like to learn from me?" Wukong said, "I am a dependent and emanation of my honored teacher. Your pupil will gladly learn whatever smidgen of the Taoist favor." The patriarch said, "Within the tradition of the Tao, there are 360 heteronomous divisions, all the practices which may result in illumination. I do not know which division you would like to follow." "I am dependent, and I will follow my honored teacher," said Wukong. Your pupil is wholeheartedly obedient." "How would it be," said the patriarch, "if I taught you the practice of method division?" Wukong asked, "Would you explain the practice of method division?" The patriarch, the practice of the method division, said the patriarch, consists of summoning immortals and working on the patriarch, of divination and manipulation of yardo stacks, and of learning of secrets of pursuing good and avoiding evil." "Can this sort of practice lead to immortality?" said Wukong. Impossible, said the patriarch. "I won't learn it then," said Wukong. "How would it be," said the patriarch again, "if I taught you the practice of school division?" "What is the meaning of school division?" asked Wukong. school division, the patriarch said, including all Confucians and Buddhists and Taoists and dualists, the Mohists and the physicians. They read scriptures and recite prayers. They interviewed priests and conjure up saints and all the like. Can this sort of practice lead to immortality? Said Wukong. The patriarch said, if immortality is what you desire, then this practice is settling a pillar inside a wall. Wukong said, Master, I am a simple fellow and does not know the items of the marketplace. What does settling a pillar inside the wall mean? The patriarch said, when the people build houses, they want them to be sturdy. They place a pillar as a prop. And inside the wall, but someday the big mansion will decay, and the pillar will too rot. So what you're saying, Wukong said, is not long-lasting. Then I'm not going to learn this, the patriarch said. How would it be if I taught you the practice of silent division? What is the aim of silent division? Wukong asked. To cultivate and fascinate the obstinate, said the patriarch, the quintessence of inactivity and meditation, and the art of cross-legged sitting, restraint and language, and a vegetarian diet. These are also the practices of yoga. Exercises, standing or prostrate entrance in a complete stillness, contemplation in solitary confinement, and the like. Can these activities, said Wukong, bring about immortality? They are no better than unfired bricks on the kiln, said the patriarch. Wukong laughed and said, Master indeed loves to beat around the bush. Haven't I told you that I don't know what these items of the marketplace mean? What do you mean by the unfired bricks in the kiln? The patriarch replied, the tiles and the bricks in the kiln may have been molded into shape, but they have not been refined by the water and fire. Heavy rain will one day make them crumble. So these two lack permanence. I don't want to learn it. The patriarch said, how would it be if I taught you the practice of active division? What's it like in the active division? Said Wukong. Plenty of activities, said the patriarch, such as gathering yin and nourishing the yang, bending the bow and treating the arrow, and rubbing the navel and pass the breath. These are also experimentation of alchemical formulas, burning rushes and forging cauldrons, taking red lead and making autumn stone, drinking bride's milk, and the like. Can these bring about long life? Asked Wukong. To obtain immortality from such activities, said the patriarch, is like scooping the moon from the water. There you go again, master, cried Wukong. What do you mean by scooping the moon from the water? The patriarch said, when the moon is high in the sky and the reflection is in the water, although it is visible therein, you cannot scoop it out or catch a hold of it. Therefore, it is an illusion. I won't learn that either, said Wukong. The patriarch heard this, uttered a cry, and jumped down from the high platform, pointed a ruler held in his hand at Wukong, and said to him, what a mischievous monkey you are. You won't learn this, you won't learn that. Just what are you waiting for? Moving forward, he hit Wukong 3 times in the head. He folded his arms behind his back and walked outside, closing the main doors behind him, leaving the congregation and stranded outside. Those who were listening to the lecture were so terrified they began to berate Wukong. You reckless ape, they cried. You utterly without manners. The master was prepared to teach you secret magics, but you weren't willing to learn. Why did you have to argue with him instead? Now you have offended him, and who knows how long it'll take for him to come out again. At that moment they all resented him and despised him and ridiculed him. But Wukong was not angered in the least, and only replied with a broad grin, for the Monkey King, in fact, had already solved secretly as to what the riddle in the pot, and he thereafter did not quarrel with the other people, but patiently held his tongue. He reasoned that the master, by hitting him 3 times, was telling him to prepare himself for the 3rd watch. By folding his arms in his back and walking inside, closing the main doors, telling him to enter by the back door so he might receive instruction in secret. Wukong spent the rest of his day happily with other pupils in front of the divine cave of the 3 stars, eagerly awaiting for the 8th night. And when the evening arrived, he immediately retired with all the others, pretending to be asleep but closing his eyes, breathing evenly, and remaining completely still. Since then there was no watchman in the mountains to beat the watch or the still. Since there's no watchman in the mountains to beat or watch the call of hour, he could not tell what time it was. It could only rely on his own calculation by counting the breath he inhaled and exhaled. Approximately the hour of Z. He arose quietly, put on his clothes, and stealthily opened the door. He slipped away from the crowd, walked outside, lifted his head, and he saw a bright moon and the cool, clear dew, although in each corner did not speck of dust. Sheltered fowls roosted in the wood. A brook flowed gently in its source. Darting fireflies dispersed from the gloom. Wild geese spread the words column throughout the clouds. Precisely, it was the third watch hour. Time to seek the way whole and true. You see him following the familiar path to the rear entrance, where he discovered the door was indeed ajar. Wukong said happily, "Reverend Master, and truly indeed give me this instruction. That's why the door was left open." He reached for the door a few large strides, entered sideways. Walking up to the patriarch's bed, he found him sleeping, his whole body curled up, facing the wall. Wukong dared not disturb him. Instead, he knelt before his bed. After a little while, the patriarch awoke, stretching his legs, and recited to himself, "Hard, hard, the way is most obscure. Deem is not golden elixir a common thing. Without the perfect man transmitting subtle rune, you have vain words, worn mouths, and tongue wax dried." "Master," Wukong responded at once, "your pupil has been kneeling here, waiting for you for a long time." The patriarch heard this. He arose and put on his clothes. "You mischievous monkey," he exclaimed, cross-legged. "Why aren't you sleeping in the front? What are you doing back in my place?" Wukong replied, "Before the platform of the congregation yesterday, Master gave an order to your pupil. At the hour of the third watch, I should come through the rear entrance, where he might be instructed. I was thereafter bold enough to come directly to the master's bed." When the patriarch heard this, he was terribly pleased, and thinking to himself, "This fellow is indeed an offspring of heaven and earth. If not, how could he solve so readily the riddle in my pot?" "There is no third party here to save your pupil," Wukong said. "May this master be exceedingly merciful and impart me the ways of the long life. Shall I never forget his gracious favor?" "Since you have solved the riddle in my pot," said the patriarch, "you have indeed indication destined to learn. I am glad to teach you. Come closer, listen carefully. I will impart to you wondrous ways of a long life." Wukong kowtowed and expressed his gratitude. He washed his ears and listened most intently, kneeling before the bed. The patriarch said, "This bold secret saying wondrous and true. Spare nurse natures and life. There is nothing else. All the power resides in the semen, breaths, and spirit. Store in the secure, lest they leak, lest they be a leak. Keep them within the body. Heed my teachings, and the way of life itself would thrive. Hold fast oral formulas, so useful and keen, to purge accompaniments and to reach the pure cool. Too pure, where the light is bright, and you'll face the elixir platform, enjoying the moon. The moon holds the jade rabbit, the sun and the crow, the tortoise and the snake are now tightly entwined. Tightly entwined, the nature of life are strong. You can plant the gold lotuses in the midst of the flames, squeeze the 5 phases, and join usefully in the back and forth. When that's done, the Buddha will be immortal and all at will." At that moment, the very origin disclosed to Wukong, whose mind became spiritualized and blessed, came to him. He carefully committed to memory and all oral formulas. After kowtowing to thank the patriarch, he left behind the rear entrance. As he went out, he saw the eastern sky began to pale light, but the golden beams shone and westward way. Following the same path, he returned to the front door, pushed it open quietly, and went inside. He sat up in his sleeping place and purposely rustled the bed, and the covers, crying, "It's light! It's light! Get up!" And all the other people who were sleeping did not know that Wukong had received a good thing. He played the fool that day after getting up, but he persisted in that he would learn secretly by doing breathing exercise before the hour of Z and after the hour of Wu. 3 years went by swiftly, and the patriarch again mounted his throne, lectured a multitude. He discussed scholastic declarations and parables. He discoursed the interment and external conduct. And suddenly he asked, "Where's Wukan?" Wukan drew and knelt down. "Your pupil is here," he said. "What sort of art have you been practicing lately?" "Recently," Wukan said, "your pupil has begun to apprehend the nature of all things, and my fundamental knowledge has become firmly established." "If you have to penetrate the Abrahama nature, then apprehend the origin," said the patriarch. "You have, in fact, learned the divine substance. You need, however, to guard against danger of the 3 calamities." When Wukan heard this, he thought for a long time and said, "The words of the master has become enormous. I have frequently heard that one must learn in the way and excel in time and virtue. He will enjoy the same age as heaven and fire, and cannot harm him, and every kind of disease will vanish. How can there be this danger of all 3 calamities?" "What have you learned?" said the patriarch. "This is no ordinary magic. You have stolen the creative powers of heaven and earth, and invaded the dark mysteries of the sun and moon. Yet your success in perfecting elixir is something that the gods and demons cannot counteressence. Though your appearance will preserve your age and lengthen, after 500 years heaven will send down a calamity of thunder to strike you. Hence you must be intelligent and wise enough to avoid it ahead of time. If you escape it, then your age will indeed be equal to that of heaven. If not, your life will be thus finished. After 500 years, heaven will send out a calamity of fire to burn you. That fire is neither natural nor common fire. Its name of the fire of yin, it arises from within, it soars on your feet and reaches the cavity of your heart, reducing your entireness to ashes, and your limbs to utter ruin. Arduous labor of millennium will be made completely superfluous, and after another 500 years of calamity, the wind will be sent to blow you. But it is not the wind of the north, south, east, or west, nor is it the winds 4 seasons, nor is it the wind of the flowers, willows, pines, or bamboos. It is called the mighty wind, and it enters from the top of the skull into the body and passes through the midriff and penetrates the 9 arteries. The bones and the flesh must dissolve, and the body itself will disintegrate. You must thereafter avoid all 3 calamities. When Wukan heard this, his hair stood on his end, and kowtowing reverently, he said, "I beg the master be merciful and impart me the method to avoid the 3 calamities. To the very end I shall never forget your gracious favor." The patriarch said, "It is not, in fact, difficult. I accept that I cannot teach you because you are somewhat different from other people." "I have a round head and pointed to heaven," said Wukong, "and square feet walking on the earth. Simultaneously, I have 9 apertures and 4 limbs and entrails and cavities. In what way am I different from other people?" The patriarch said, "Although you resemble man, you are much less agile. The monkey, you see, an angular face with hollow cheeks and pointed mouth, stretching his hand to feel himself." Wukong laughed and said, "Master does not know how to balance matters. Though I have much less jowl than human beings, I have pouch, and which may certainly considered a compensation." "Very well, then," said the patriarch. "What method of escape would you like to learn?" "There is an art of heavenly ladle, which numbers in 36 transformations. There is the art of earthly multitude, which numbers in 72 transformations." Wukong said, "Your people is always eager to catch more fishes, so I'll learn the art of heavenly multitude." "In that case," the patriarch said, "come with me. I'll pass on the oral formulas to you." He whispered something into his ear, although he did not know what sort of wondrous secrets he spoke of. But this Monkey King was someone who, knowing one thing, could understand the 100. He immediately learned the oral formulas. After working them and practicing them himself, he mastered all 72 transformations. One day, the patriarch and various pupils were admiring the even when 3-star cave. The master asked Wukong, "Has the matter been perfected?" Wukong said, "Thanks to the profound kindness of the master, your pupil has indeed attained perfection, and now I can ascend to the midst of air and fly." The patriarch said, "Then let me see you try and fly." Wishing to display his ability, Wukong leaped 50 or 60 feet into the air. Pulling himself up into a somersault, he trod onto the clouds, and for a time of a meal, and traveled to a distance no more than 3 miles before dropping down again to stand before the patriarch. "Master," he said, his hands folded in front of him. "This flying cloud soaring laughing," the patriarch said. "This cannot be cloud soaring. It's more like cloud crawling. The old saying goes, the immortal towers to sea in the morning and reaches the Kangoo by night. If it takes you half a day to go less than 3 miles, then it can't even consider cloud crawling." "What do you mean?" asked Wukong. "By saying the immortal tours the northern sea in the morning reaches by Kangoo night," the patriarch said. "Those who are capable of cloud soaring may start by the northern sea in the morning and journey through the cloud east sea and the west sea and the south sea and return again by Kangoo." Kangoo refers to the landing in the northern sea. Kangoo can be referred to landing in the northern sea. It can be called true cloud soaring only when you can traverse all 4 seas in one day. "That's truly difficult," said Wukong. "Truly difficult." Nothing in this world is difficult," said the patriarch. "Only the mind makes it so." When Wukong heard these words, he kowtowed reverently and implored the patriarch, "Master, if you perform a service to someone, you must do it thoroughly. You may be the most merciful and impart to me and also the technique of cloud soaring. I will never dare forget your gracious favor," the patriarch said. Then the various immortals want to soar up in the clouds. They all rise by stamping their feet. But you, not like them, I saw you leave just now. You have to pull yourself up and jumping. What I'll do now is teach you cloud soaring somersault accordance into your form." Wukong prostrated himself and pleaded with him, and the patriarch gave him an oral formula, saying, "Make the magic sign and recite the spell. Clench your fists tightly, shake your body, and jump up. And one somersault will carry you 108,000 miles." Then the other people heard this. They all giggled and said, "Lucky Wukong! If he learned this little trick, he can become a dispatcher for someone to deliver documents or carry circulators. He'll be able to make a living anywhere." The sky now began to darken, and the master went back to the cave, dwelling with his pupils. Throughout the night, however, Wukong practiced accordingly and mastered the technique of cloud somersault. From then on, he had complete freedom and blissfully enjoyed his state of a long life. And now, early day into the summer, the disciples gathered under the pine trees in fellowship and discussion. They all said to Wukong, "The sort of merit did you accumulate another incarnation? And what led to the master whispering in your ear the other day the method of avoiding 3 calamities? Have you learned everything? I won't conceal this from various elder brothers," said Wukong, laughing. "Allowing the master and various elder brothers," Wukong said, laughing. "Constructing the first place in my diligence day, and the night in the second, I have fully mastered all several matters. Let's take advantage of this moment," the pupil said. "If you put on a performance, then we'll watch." Wukong heard this, and his spirits arose. He is the most eager to display his powers. "I invite you, various elder brothers, to give me a subject," he said. What do you want me to change into?" "Why not a pine tree?" they said. Wukong made the magic sign and recited the spell. With one shake of his body, he changed himself into a pine tree. Truly it was, thickly held in smoke through all 4 seasons. Its chaste, fair form soared straight into the clouds, with not the least likeness to impish monkey. Its all frost-dried and all snow-tested branches. When the multitude saw this, they clapped their hands and roared with laughter, everyone crying, "Marvelous monkey, marvelous monkey!" They did not realize the uproar had disturbed the patriarch, who came running through the door, dragging his staff. "Who is creating this bellham here?" he demanded. His voice, the pupils immediately collected themselves and set their clothes in order, and came forward. Wukong also changed back into his true form. Slipping into the crowd, he said, "For your information, Reverend Master, we are having this fellowship and discussion here. No one from outside is causing any disturbance. You are all yelling and screaming," said the patriarch angrily, "and you are all behaving in a manner totally unbecoming of the practicing of cultivation. Don't you know that all these cultivation of the Tao will resist, in opening their mouths lest they waste their breath and spirit, or moving their tongues lest they provoke arguments? Why are you all laughing so noisily here? We dare not conceal this from you, Master," the crowd said. "But just now we were having fun with Wukong, who was giving us a performance in transformation. We told him to change into a pine tree, and he did become a pine tree. Your pupils were all applauding for him. Our voices disturbed the reverend teacher. We beg his forgiveness. Go away, all of you," the patriarch said. "You, Wukong, come here. I ask you, what sort of exhibition were you putting on? Changing into a pine tree? This ability you now possess is just for showing off to people? You suppose you saw someone with this ability. Wouldn't you ask him at once how you acquired it? So when others see that you're in possession of it, they'll come begging. If you're afraid to refuse them, then you'll give them way in secret. If you don't, they may hurt you. You are actively placing your life in grave jeopardy. I beseech this master to forgive me," said Wukong, kowtowing. "I won't condemn you," said the patriarch, "but you must leave this place." Wukong heard this. Tears fell from his eyes. "Where am I to go, teacher?" he said. "From where you came," the patriarch said. "You should go back there." "I came from the East Purvada continent," Wukong said. His memory jolted the patriarch. "From the water, current, cave, flower fruit mountain in a low-lying country. Go back there quickly and save your life," the patriarch said. "You cannot possibly remain here." "Allow me to inform my esteemed teacher," said Wukong, probably petulant. "I have been this way. I've been away from home for 20 years. I've certainly longed to see my subjects and followers by the bygone days again. But I keep thinking my master, confirmed kindness to me, has not yet been repaid, and I, therefore, not leave." "There's nothing to be repaid," said the patriarch. "See that you don't get into trouble and involve me. That is all I ask." Seeing that there's no alternative, Wukong had to bow to the patriarch and take his leave in the congregation. "Once you leave," said the patriarch, "you're bound to end up doing evil doing. I don't care what kind of villainy and violence you engage in, but I forbid you to ever mentioning that you are my disciple. For you are but an utter half of the world. I'll know about it, but you can be assured, you wretched monkey, that you'll be skinned alive. I will break all your bones and banish your soul to a place of the ninefold darkness, from which you will not be released after 10,000 affiliations. I will never dare mention my master," said Wukong. "I'll say that I've learned all by myself." Having thanked the patriarch, Wukong turned away and made a magic sign and pulled himself up and performed the cloud somersault. He headed straight forward to East Purvada. In an hour he could already see Flower Fruit Mountain. The water curtain cave, rejoicing secretly in the handsome Monkey King, said to himself, "I left weighed down by bones in mortal stock. The Tao attained makes light in both body and frame. 'Tis this world a pity that none of firm resolve to learn such mystery that itself is plain. 'Twas hard to cross the seas in former time. Returning to his state, I travel with ease. Words of farewell still echo in my ears. Ne'er I hope to see so soon the eastern depths. Wukong lowered in the direction of his cloud and landed squarely on Flower Fruit Mountain. He was trying to find his way when he heard the call of cranes and cries of monkeys. The calls of cranes reverberated in the heavens, and the cry of the monkeys moved. His spirit was sadness. Little ones, he called out, I have returned. From the crannies of the cliff and the flowers and the bushes, from the woods and the trees. Monkeys great and small leaped from all tens and thousands surrounding the handsome Monkey King. They all kowtowed and cried, Great King, what laxity of the mind! Why did you go away for such a long time and leaving us here longing for your return, hungering and thirsty? Recently, abused by a monster who's wanting to rob us from our water curtain cave. Been brutally abused by a monster who wanted to rob us of our water curtain cave. Out of sheer desperation, we fought hard with him, and yet all this time this fellow has plundered many of our possessions, kidnapped a number of our young ones, and gave us many restless days and nights watching over our property. How fortunate our great king has returned. If the great king had stayed away another year or so, we and the entire mountain cave would have belonged to someone else. Hearing this, Wukong was filled with anger. What sort of monster is this, he cried, that behaves in such a lawless manner? Tell me the details, and I will find him and exact our vengeance. Be informed, great king, the monkey saying, kowtowing, that this fellow calls himself the monstrous king of havoc. He lives north of here, Wukong asked. From where is his place, and how great is this distance? The monkeys replied, He comes like the cloud and leaves like the mist, like the wind and the rain, like the lightning and the thunder. We don't know how great his distance is. In that case, said Wukong, go play for a while, and don't be afraid. Let me go and find him. Dear Monkey King, Li leaped up from the bound and somersaulted way northward until he saw a tall and rugged mountain. What a mountain! Its pen-like peak stands and is erect, its winding streams flowing unfathomed and deep. Its pen-like peak standing erect is, cut through the air, its winding streams, unfathomable and deep, reach as diverse sights on earth. Its two ridges, flowers rival the trees in exotic charm. At various spots, pines match bamboo in green. The dragon on the left seems docile and tame. The tiger on the right seems gentle and meek. Oxen on the occasion seems kowtowing. Golden coin flowers figurely planted, where fowls make melodious songs. The phoenix stands facing the sun. Rocks worn smooth and shiny by water and placid and bright, appear by turn grotesque, bizarre, and fierce in countless numbers of the world's famous mountain, where the flowers bloom and wither, they flourish and die. What a place remembers a long-lasting scene, who wholly untouched by the 4 seasons and 8 epochs. In this 3 regions, the mountain of the northern spring, water-belly cave, nourished by the 5 phases. The handsome Monkey King was silently viewing the scenery when he heard someone speaking. He went down to the mountain to find who it was, and he discovered the water-belly cave at the foot of a steep cliff. Several imps who were dancing in front of the cave saw Wukong and began to run away. Stop! Cried Wukong. You can use the words of the mouth of communicate, the thoughts of my mind. I am the lord of the water curtain cave in the Flower Fruit Mountain, south of here. Your monstrous king of havoc, or whatever he's called, has repeatedly bullied my young ones, and I have found my way here for a specific purpose of settling matters with him. Hearing this, the imp started into the cave and cried out, Great king, disastrous thing has happened. What sort of disaster? Asked the monstrous king. Outside the cave, said the imps, there's a monkey who calls himself the lord of the water curtain cave in the Flower Fruit Mountain.
He says you have repeatedly bullied his young ones, and that he has come to settle matters with you." Laughing, the monstrous king said, "I have often heard of the monkeys say they have a great king, who has left the family to practice self-cultivation. He must have come back. How is he dressed? What kind of weapons does he have? Does he have any kind of yellow sash and a pair of black boots on? He looks like neither a monk nor layman, neither a Taoist nor a mortal. He is out there making demands with naked hands and empty fists." The monstrous king heard this and ordered, "Get me my armor and my weapons." These were immediately brought out by the imps, and the monstrous king put on his breastplate and helmet, grasped his scimitar, and walked out from the cave with his followers. "Who is this lord of the water-curtained cave?" he cried with a loud voice. He quickly opened his wide eyes to take a look. Wukon saw the monstrous king. Wore his head a black gold helmet which gleamed in the sun, and his body dark silk robe which swayed in the wind. Lower had a black iron vest tied tightly with the leather straps. His feet shod finely in carved boots, grand as those warriors great, 10 spans with his waist, 30 feet height of his frame. Held his hands a sword, its blade fine and bright. His name, monster of havoc, of most fearsome form and look. "You have such big eyes, reckless monster. You can't even see old monkey," the monkey king shouted. The monstrous king saw him and laughed and said, "You are not 4 feet tall, nor you are 30 years old. You don't have weapons in your hand. How dare you be so insolent? Looking to settle accounts? You reckless monster," cried Wukon. "You are blind indeed. You think I'm small, not knowing it's hardly difficult for me to become taller. You think I'm without a weapon? I by my 2 hands can drag the moon down the edge of heaven. Don't be afraid. Have a taste of this old monkey's fist." He leaped into the air and aimed a blow smack in the monster's face. Parrying the blow with his hand, the monstrous king said, "You are such a midget, and I'm so tall, and you want to use your fist, but I have a scimitar. If I were to kill you with it, I would be a laughing stock. Let me put down my scimitar, and we'll see how well you can box." "Well said, fine fellow," replied Wukon. "Come on." The monstrous king shifted his positions and struck out. Wukon closed in on him, hurling himself into an engagement. The two of them pummeled and kicked, struggling, colliding with each other. It is easy to miss the long reach, but the short punch firm and reliable. Stabbed the monstrous king in the short ribs, hit him in the chest, and gave him heavy punishment with a few sharp blows. The monstrous king stepped aside, picked up his huge scimitar at Wukon's head, and slashed at him. Wukon dodged, the blow narrowly missing him. Seeming that his opponent was now growing fiercer, Wukon now used a method called Bodhi beyond the body. Plucking a handful of his hairs in his own body, throwing them into his mouth, and chewed them into tiny pieces, and spat them into the air. "Change!" he cried, and it changed at once to 2 or 3 little monkeys encircling his combatants at all sides. For you see, when someone acquires a body of an immortal, he can protect his spirit, change his form, perform all kinds of wonders, and since the Monkey King has become an accomplished in the way of every 84,000 hairs of his body, he can change in whatever shape or substance he desired. The little monkeys he created were so keen-eyed, so shifted of movement, that they became wounded by neither sword nor spear. Look at them, skipping and jumping as they rushed the monstrous king, surrounding him, hugging some, pulling and crawling between his legs, some tugging at his feet. They kicked and punched, they yanked his hair, poked his eyes, and pinched his nose, and tried to sweep him completely off his feet until they tangled themselves into confusion. Meanwhile, Wukon succeeded in sashing the scimitar, pushed it through the little monkeys, and brought the scimitar down squarely on the monster's skull, cleaving it into two. He and the rest of the monkeys fought their way into the cave, slaughtered all the imps, young and old. With a shake, he collected his hair back into his body, but there were some monkeys that did not return to him. They were little monkeys kidnapped by the monstrous king from the water carton cave. "Why are you here?" said Wukong. 30 or 50 feet, all of them said tearfully. "After the great king went away to seek of immortality, the monster menaced us for 2 whole years and finally carried us off to his place. Don't these utensils belong to our cave? These stone pots and bowls were all taken by the creature." "If these are all our belongings," said Wukong, "then move them out of here." Then he set a fire in the water-belly cave and reduced it to ashes. "All of you," he said to all of them, "follow me home." "Great king," the monkeys said, "when we came here we all felt the wind rushing past us. We all seemed to float through the air until we arrived here. We do not know the way. How can we get back to our home?" Wukong said, "That's a magic trick of his. There's no difficulty. Now I know not to the only thing but 100. I am familiar with this trick too. Close your eyes, all of you, and don't be afraid." Dear Monkey King, he recited the spell, rode for a while in the fierce wind, then lowered the direction of the cloud. "Little ones, open your eyes." The monkey felt a solid ground beneath their feet and recognized their home territory. With great delight, every one of them ran back to the cave, along with the familiar roads and crowds in together. With waiting in the cave, they lined up according to age and rank and began tribute to the Monkey King. Wine and fruits were laid out for welcome and a banquet. And when asked how he subdued the monster, he rescued the young ones and presented details in rehearsal. The monkeys broke out into a pending applause. "Where did you go, great king?" they cried. "We never expected that you would acquire such skills. The year I left you all, I drifted with the waves across the great eastern ocean and reached Apriogaia continent. When I arrived to the South Jambudia continent, I heard a human ways, wearing garments and these shoes. I staggered along with the clouds in 8 or 9 years, and I have yet to learn the great art. And I crossed the great western ocean to reach the West Apriogaia continent. After searching for a long time, I had good fortune in discovering an old patriarch who imparted me his formula for enjoying the same age as heaven and the secrets of immortality. Such luck is hard to meet after 10,000 affiliations," said the monkeys, all congratulating him. "Little ones," Wukong said, laughing, "another delight in our family now has a name. What is the name of our great king?" "My surname is Sun," said Wukong. "My religious name is Wukong." When the monkeys heard this, they all clapped their hands, shouted happily, "If the great king is elder son, then we all are junior sons. The third sons, small sons, tiny sons, Sun family, Sun nation, and Sun cave. We all came with honored elders, sons, with large, small bows of coconut, grape, vine flowers, and fruits. It was indeed a big, happy family. Lo, the surname is one a self returned to its source. Its glory awaits, a name recorded in heaven. We do not know the result of was or how Wukong would fare in this realm. Let's see to this explanation in the next chapter.